Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate it. We're having a Meet the Candidates forum with school board candidates for Bethel Park School District. My name is Sharon Janisic. I kind of put this together at the last minute. It really was with only 1 week notice, so please keep that in mind. It was a short time frame for everyone, and the board members are very busy. What they do is completely volunteer. They are not paid monetarily or otherwise to compensate them for their time, and they do put a lot of time and effort into being board members at the school district, and we're grateful for their service. They do it in the best interest of children and really out of the kindness of their hearts. They don't really get anything back from it. So please keep that in mind. I want to let you know we have cookies and water, and we have papers and pens if you want to ask questions during the evening. Just jot them down and hold them up, and my husband or one of my friends will come around and pick them up. We're going to try to consolidate them and probably lightly edit them because we want to preserve everyone's privacy and kind of make sure we don't go way off track into areas we can't really do anything about. All right, so I invited all the candidates, but as I said, it was short notice, so some of them did have other obligations tonight. And I had asked them if they wanted to send me a statement, an opening statement or something to read to tell you about themselves. And I did get from all three who were not able to be here tonight a statement. So I'll read those to you. Mrs. Buckley, Cindy Buckley, wrote me, and she said she's had the honor to be a member of the Bethel Park School District Board of School Directors for 2 terms, and she's currently seeking re-election for 3rd term. Prior to being elected, I taught in the Bethel Park School District for 35 plus years and attended school board meetings as a parent of 3 children, an educator of many for well over 30 of those years. Sadly, there were many meetings where I was one of just a few people attending. My lifelong goal has always been to do what is best for all children, and that, I can promise you, will never change. I spend countless hours reviewing, researching, and giving great thought to prepare for all of our meetings. It is important to note that I take my fiduciary responsibilities very seriously, and if I am re-elected, my priorities will continue to be the children of Bethel Park while being mindful of keeping taxes affordable. I welcome all comments and concerns at buckley.cynthia@bphawks.org. Most sincerely, Cindy Buckley. So that's a statement from Cindy, who did have other commitments because, again, it was short notice. And hopefully there will be other opportunities throughout the election season to do other Meet the Candidate forums, and I hope to plan one in the fall with much more notice and a lot more preparation. Hopefully everybody can make it to that one. I received a statement from Mr. Russell Spacuzza. Unfortunately, with only 1 week notice, I was unable to clear my work schedule to attend this evening's event. I would ask anyone in the audience or in the community of Bethel Park to reach out to me. My contact information is listed on the district website. Call or email me, and I will be happy to answer any questions that I can legally am able to answer. Russ Spacuzza. And we have Connie Rule. Russ is traveling for work this evening, so he was unable to rearrange his schedule, and Connie is at the Steel Center Votech board meeting. She's the president of that board, and they had a pre-existing commitment to that meeting. Mrs. Rule wrote, I have a BS in business management and a master's in industrial relations. I have taught as an adjunct professor in the undergraduate business adult program for over 15 years and taught in the master's program for human relations for over 5 years. I currently teach entrepreneurship through the Chamber Business Institute. I worked for Mellon Bank for 20 years and was an AVP and training director. I owned my company, Training USA, for over 10 years. I developed and designed curricula for business, personal development, and leadership. I also performed productivity and workflow studies. I represent Bethel Park School District at BSPA, SHASDA, AIU, and Steel Center Career and Technology Center. This has given me a perspective not only district-wide, but state and county-wide. We oftentimes are asked our opinions on issues where they see we have taken a lead. I am proud to represent the Bethel Park School District. I am running to help formulate and provide the best quality education for all students. Since I've been on the board, we have had committees study charter schools, homeschooling, gifted and special needs at one time or another, and the policies that we have today are a result of parents' input. We are also known countywide as a school that takes good care of special needs students. I believe that we should continue to assess what we are doing to continually update, improve our education, and challenge when necessary. In the past 6 to 10 years, the committees have floundered or disbanded because parents are both working and life has become hectic. We are always willing to get parents' input district-wide. I believe that we need to prepare our students for the world of work and for continuing education and the professions. With the new federal and state regulations, along with Career and Technology's new guidelines, education will be facing some major changes in the coming years. Our students will also be facing new challenges. Financially, we are in for some critical challenges due to federal and state mandates and funding cuts. The biggest challenges oftentimes are the federal, state, and legal mandates that are imposed without funding mechanisms. Working as a community, we should be transparent, be engaged, and work toward what is best for the students of Bethel Park. I believe that combining my education and financial background enables me to bring a balance for quality education and fiscal responsibility. I am able to make decisions that consider our children first, district-wide, and to ensure that the taxpayer gets the quality of education that they are paying for at all times. And she also offered if anyone wants to call her and ask her any questions, you can certainly email her, or you could call her, and her number is also available on the website. So I'll have them up here if you guys want to take a look at them later on. All right, so this is Pamela Dovis and Ken Nagel, and they are also candidates for school board. And Pam is an incumbent who's running for re-election. And would you like to make an opening statement?
Certainly. Hi, my name is Pam Dovis. I've lived in Bethel Park for most of my life. My husband and I both graduated from Bethel Park High School in 1971, and he had a dental practice here for 20 years before he became a teacher of dental medicine down at the University of Pittsburgh. We've raised our 2 children here. I have 2 grandchildren who will be attending the Bethel Park Elementary Schools in the near future. For 35 years, I worked as an English teacher in the school until I retired in June of 2011. I've been a school board member for the last 4 years. I think that I've been an independent voice on the board, someone who asks questions, sometimes disagreeing with the majority of board members. Each of us on the board has a strength or different strengths. I think that my strength on the board is that I'm familiar with the educational aspects of many of the decisions that we're making. More so than, for example, than I'm familiar with the renovation of facilities. But over the last 4 years, I've become increasingly conversant in all of the areas and aspects of the board's decisions. I do admit that I'm most interested in sustaining and improving the quality of education in the district, especially in the area of the new STEAM innovations and STEAM education. I also do not believe that promoting high test scores or the teaching to a particular test is necessarily the best way to educate our youth. But I do know that finances, real estate, property values are intrinsically tied to our test scores and standardized testing. So I believe that an integrated, interdisciplinary approach to education will provide our community with the best critical thinkers in our students and the most creative minds. Individuals who have integrity and values and will be able to carry us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Mr. Nagel, would you like to make an opening statement as well?
Yes, my name is Ken Nagel. I'm the only non-incumbent running, so I guess I need to introduce myself to all of you. I've lived in Bethel Park for going on 14 years now. I grew up in the West End area, Crafton Heights to be specific. Graduated high school and went straight into the Navy. I served for 4 years honorably, got out of the Navy, and I was an electrician in the Navy. I joined the electricians union out here, where I was engaged and active in my education through the apprenticeship and my union. Once I graduated the union, I used my GI Bill to go back to school at Duquesne University, and I studied at the School of Leadership and achieved a degree in organizational leadership and professional communications, graduating summa cum laude with a 3.99 grade point average. I strive to excel in anything I do. When I'm engaged in something, when I involve myself in something, I put myself all in. The last 9 years, I've served as service officer at the American Legion here in Bethel Park, helping serve veterans and their families and helping to be a liaison to them, to find them resources they need to answer questions and get help that they may be seeking. I have 2 young daughters here in Bethel Park, one of which just started at Ben Franklin Elementary School, and the other one's in the Early Learning Center at the high school. I figured it's a good time to start getting involved with the school board, going to meetings, finding out what's going on. I probably should have done so a little bit earlier, but you know, as many of you know, parents or grandparents, usually it takes something to kickstart you. Usually it's your children that make you really open your eyes to what's going on. And we do have a great district. We do many things very well. And there are some things that I'd like to see us do better. I'd like to see more involvement with the parents, more engagement with parents and teachers in the decision-making process for the board. There's always room for improvement. My grandfather always said to me, the day he wakes up and he's not learning something that day, he doesn't need to wake up anymore. We all need to learn and grow. And as I said, I always strive to succeed, strive to excel at whatever I do. I set my goals very high. Most of the time, unachievable goals. But I do that for purpose. I'm not let down when I don't achieve them. If you set your goals unachievable, what you do accomplish is usually pretty good. Now, just yesterday, the U.S. News and World Report's rankings came out for Pennsylvania. It's not the end-all be-all. Some people are unranked because of various reasons, you know, incomplete information. But I do want to say some of our neighbors, Mount Lebanon, number 11 in Pennsylvania, Upper St. Clair, number 12 in Pennsylvania, South Fayette, number 20, Peters, number 23. You have Pine Richland at number 7, Hampton at 16, I said South Fayette, Campa, a city school, a very good city school, 21. Bethel Park wasn't ranked. As I said, there's a lot of reasons that they may not have been ranked. It doesn't mean we're a poor school district by any means. It could be incomplete information, but that ranking does mean something. It may just be a number to some people, but when a young family's looking at an area to move into, one of the things that they look at is the school district. How does the school district rate with the surrounding school districts? We should be striving to be number 1. And until we reach number 1, we shouldn't stop striving to be number 1. Now, I'm not an education professional. I don't have a lot of background in school or anything, but what I am and what I intend to be to the constituents of Bethel Park, to the taxpayers, to the parents, is an advocate for our children. My children who are in the district and will be for the next 14 years, to your children, your grandchildren, to our friends' children. Children should always be first and foremost, and if we're not striving to be number 1 in the whole robust educational experience for every children at every level of learning, at every level of the education, we're doing a disservice to our community and to our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nagel. Okay, we had some questions that I sent out in advance since the other 3 candidates weren't able to come tonight. But they wanted to just give a general statement, so they didn't actually send specific answers. In many cases, it's difficult to answer a lot of these questions because they sort of require more of a conversation. So we'll see what happens. If you guys have anything you want to ask about, just raise your hand. We may have already covered this on your opening statements, but why are you running? What goals do you hope to achieve? And how did you select these issues? If there was anything you didn't already cover, you may have already said all that. Did you have anything additional to add?
Yeah. I'm running to ensure kids are first and foremost in the decision-making process. I hope to help our school district. Sorry, I wrote all this down. I'm not really used to public speaking, so I'm going to glance at my notes probably more than I should.
That's okay.
But I did put a lot of time and effort into researching the questions and trying to inform you guys the best I could. I hope to help our school district become one of the most robust in the state for children of all learning levels, backgrounds, and needs. I want to do this by continuously assessing our strengths and weaknesses, as well as looking outside the district to see what's working elsewhere. Like I said, we have a lot of good school districts around us. They're doing some things right that we may be able to emulate in our district, and there's no harm in trying to seek out criticism and advice and learn from them. I selected this issue as Article 3, Section 14 of the PA Constitution states, the General Assembly shall provide for the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient system of public education. I have 2 daughters, and it is imperative to me that they get the absolute best education, educational support, and safety and security in their schools that is possible, and I will fight for that.
Mrs. Dobus?
One thing that you mentioned there about the state and the requirement for the thorough education. Unfortunately, the state hasn't come through with the funds that they should be giving the districts in order for us to accomplish that. It's actually in the state law and in their constitution or whatever how much money they should be giving us, but they have historically not been giving us that money.
Very true.
So one of my goals would be to try to get that money for everybody, but I don't know if we'll be able to change that trend that has been going on for so long. But I also am committed to our children and to the educational excellence in our schools. In order to do that, we have to provide a safe environment for our children and where they're educated. And I think that we've worked towards that in terms of our plans for emergencies and different things like that. But I think there's more work that can be done to ensure that safety for our children, and that would be one of my specific goals. Also, we do have to implement the state and federal mandates regarding education. However, I think that we also have to preserve some integrity in terms of our local decision making. I don't think anybody likes to have things rammed down our throats. And so while we have to follow those federal and state mandates, I think we also must use our local knowledge and our local and those things that we know about our own school community and our own students in order to make good decisions when we do that implementation. Also, I agree with Mr. Nagel about the need for more communication and transparency and communications with the public. I think that in the 4 years I've been on the board, I do believe that it's become more transparent and there's been more interaction, but I think that more should occur. I have other goals that are, big, high, generic, and that kind of thing, but those are my specific ones that I can think about.
Thank you. All right, I guess we'll start with you for this question, Mrs. Dobus. Do you see yourself primarily as a representative of the community or as a representative of the school system? And are you willing to challenge or question things that are not happening in the district or that are happening in the district? And how will you go about that?
I don't think as a responsible elected official that a person can choose to represent one side over another. I think I'm ethically responsible to serve both the community and the school, the parents, the children, the staff, the students, the senior citizens, and the preschoolers. So to that end, I will always question and challenge the decisions that we're making, the issues we're discussing. And if you come to the meetings or watch us on cable, I think that you'll see that I've done this over the last 4 years. So in terms of my representation, I hope I represent everyone in Bethel Park to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Mr. Nagel?
I somewhat disagree. I do agree definitely that she
Disagreeing's okay.
very, very good at challenging and being a dissenting voice at times. I don't agree necessarily with the fact that we serve two masters. We're elected by the community, we're elected by the taxpayers, we represent the community as any elected official does to carry out their vision and of the district through direction and oversight that the board gives us. Now the administration, the school system is we're supposed to give them that direction to take that forward. I see it as an explicit responsibility as a representative to question and challenge always. Like I said, we're always learning new things. We should always be questioning. We are representatives of you. We're supposed to be asking the questions on your behalf. We're supposed to be taking that vision forward. If I'm elected, I'm letting you guys know what my vision is, and I take that as support that you guys want me to carry out that vision. I'm going to fight so that the school district follows through on that vision.
Thank you. I'm going to throw in a question from the audience here, since we already have some. Mr. Nagel,
Yes.
can you talk about your position about the role of science in public education? And there seems to be a possibility of an apparent slide away from science fact-based curriculum towards accepting non-secular theories. Kind of, I've seen in the elementary school not as much of an emphasis on science, kind of the same topics being covered every year. So how do you feel science fits into a well-rounded education?
Well, science is a large driver of the world. Technology advances, technological advances, medical advances. If we're not teaching our children science, and a lot of countries are way ahead of us on this, and they're frankly kicking our butts. It's important to focus on fact-based science, proven science, science that has been thoroughly researched, thoroughly vetted, not speculation or ideology, but science. Science is based in facts, and I support a strong emphasis towards that, as well as the other components of STEAM. And I do definitely support STEAM. The arts are also a very important factor in our education. But yes, science should be fact-based, and there should be a focus on it.
Thank you. Mrs. Davis?
Yes, science is crucial to our future in terms of the experiments and creating and encouraging our young people to become scientists, particularly females who have seriously lacked, presence in the science field over many years. And I'm surprised at the question a little bit because I know that there is, first of all, there's a PSSA regarding the science curriculum that is showing some more rigor in terms of what we're teaching our students. And I know that with the STEAM approach, because it's science, technology, English, art, and math, that there's a coordinated effort to try to incorporate science in the reading program, in the math program, so that, to try to work them all together. So it might be that science is not being taught as a separate unit as much as it is being integrated into the curriculum that is at the elementary schools right now. But yes, science is very important. But in order to become a scientist, in order to understand scientific principles, you have to be able to read first. And so I think our focus is a lot on that too.
This is true. And math helps in science,
Yes.
I've heard.
Well, yes.
Yes.
Well, I was an English teacher, so of course I'm plugging reading.
I'd like to add, art also helps people think outside the box, think creatively, abstractly, in science. They all work together. They definitely are all very important, all very necessary.
That's very true. Sometimes it is the... Oh.
Sorry, I didn't mean to drive.
Go ahead.
I actually submitted the question, and I think that the reason I did is because if you believe in science, you believe in antibiotics or painkillers or
Yes.
things that stem from science, right? And it seems like, with questioning evolution or questioning some of these things, I think that was more the basis of the question is, where do you separate from theory versus what is taught in the classroom versus fact and science based?
I'm just going to repeat that because I want to make sure it gets picked up for the camera. They probably might not hear you. So the question was about at what point is it teaching theories and accepting someone's opinion of creation versus evolution and whether or not those things are appropriate in a public school education. Does that cover it?
I believe in the separation of church and state, so that I think that science is science, and that's it.
I echo that belief in separation of church. Is this one? Separation of church and state. I'd also like to add, and I can't quote the article and section of the Constitution, but the Pennsylvania Constitution also says the public, paraphrasing, public education should not be used for sectarian purposes. So we're actually forbidden from making that distinction because of the separation of church and state embodied in our Constitution.
Thank you. We're getting so many good questions from the audience, and these are the things you guys want to know, so that's what I'll ask you for a little bit. What do you think in regard to the strength of the teachers' union in our district?
Well, as I said, I am a union member, so I hope you don't mind. I'll take this first. I know. I didn't mean that.
No, I got it.
No, but I would like to say I strongly believe in collective bargaining rights for all employees in all sectors. Now, as a school board member, it's not my job to facilitate the teachers' collective bargaining rights, but it is my job to be an honest partner in the educational process, and when teachers are collectively bargaining in good faith, I think the school board should also.
I was a union member for my 35 years in teaching, and I'm a staunch supporter of the union. First of all, when I started teaching back in 1975, our salaries were not salaries on which we could live. By the time I by the time I retired, maybe I did graduate. By the time I retired, our salaries we were able to live on them. And so the union helped to do that. And I know it was contentious, particularly in Bethel Park over the years, but it did provide us with a livable wage. Second of all, the union has kept the class sizes as a sacred entity in the contract. And without that language, I don't know what the class size would be in Bethel Park. And so I respect the union's ability to do that. And additionally, the teachers are involved in the curricular decisions, in helping to decide what programs are adopted and how we fulfill the state requirements and different things like that. That is not true in every district, and that is part of the teacher's contract. So unfortunately, in terms of the strength of the union, there have, as I said, there have been contentious times and there have been strikes in Bethel, and those are unfortunate, and I wish they had never happened. But I do think that those three aspects I just talked about speaks to what a good union can help with in terms of the education for the students and the strength of the district.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to go back to one of the questions that I had sent, because I think it touches on something you just said, particularly about the curriculum committees. I'm finding that there are a lot of districts, the largest being the Pittsburgh City School District, that actually include parents into their curriculum committee. They make presentations to parents and provide the materials and have them look at them and give opinions on them. So that's part of the question of how could the district increase the involvement of parents and residents in the decisions being made? Are there things you think that we could do so that more people are more aware of what's going on and have the ability to give input? Let's see, whose turn is it?
As I said in my opening statement, we need to engage the parents. We need to bring them into this decision-making process. We need to engage everybody we can in order to gain as much information as we can to make the most informed decisions on behalf of the children. I fully feel that the parents should be a large part of the decision-making process, a larger part than I feel that there is today. I find one of the problems with that decision-making process is the parents don't have enough information before the decisions are made. I will work to try to help bring the information to the light of day, and I will try to reach out and engage any parent, any teacher, any taxpayer, anybody who has constructive criticism to help me make the best informed decision on behalf of the children.
Thank you. Mrs. Davis?
Historically, in Bethel Park, there have been parent curriculum committees, and there also have been community budgetary committees. One that helped with the curriculum, and the other that helped with the budgetary matters. I don't recall when they went away, but I do know that they're no longer in existence. I think that they were important and helpful to the elected officials and to the administration because it provided a way for the parents to give input. Right now, the only avenues it seems like are probably the strategic planning committees and indirectly maybe through the PTO, but also through attending the committee meetings that the board has. So every month there are two meetings. One's a committee meeting and one's a business meeting. The committee meetings are the times when information is discussed and questions are asked. That meeting should be more open, I believe, to the public. Right now, it's run with Robert's Rules of Orders, which doesn't always allow for a discussion to occur, an interaction to occur with the audience. When the audience is small, there is some exchange, but there should be a way that we can open that up for more of an exchange of information. It hasn't been done for the most part yet. However, I am encouraged that this year we did have policy meetings with the booster organizations to help revise the booster policy that we voted on in August of last summer. And during that meeting, there was an open exchange of ideas, and it wasn't limited, and I was very much encouraged by that, and I hope that that continues.
Thank you. I was at that meeting as well. That was a good meeting.
Because we talk to one
Yes.
another.
Yes. And I also encourage people who are interested to please come to the committee meetings and the board meetings. That's how you find out what's going on. Kind of the only way you're going to find out what's going on. So please consider coming. Since you mentioned the booster meeting, we got a question. And Ken, you're slightly at a disadvantage. And actually, Mrs. Davis, I'm not sure if you even know this is going on yet. All right. This is about the Bethel Park cheerleading boosters. Can we have an update on the requested financial audit of the booster organization for the last 10 years in the undisclosed bank account and with the separation of the boosters? I think there's some kind of separation of boosters between competitive and sideline teams. I don't know much about cheerleaders or boosters, so I apologize, I can't illuminate that anymore. And they're looking for the auditing of the boosters before the accounts were split. And I'm not sure if you've heard anything about this or if you know
I
anything.
know that we just in this past meeting voted to allow there to be 2 booster organizations. You were at that meeting. So there's a competitive, there's the competitive cheerleader organization, and there is the varsity cheerleader organization. And the cheerleaders and their parents are part of both organizations, but the request was to separate the funding because it really shouldn't overlap, because the one competes nationally and the other one is, just within the school district. And I know that the superintendent and the athletic director has been involved with it, and I can't speak to it more than to say that. So I'm sorry, I don't know.
Would you refer people to
the
contact the superintendent?
Yes, contact the superintendent for more information about that. Someone raised their hand back there.
That has already been done. It's going through the school board, it's gone through the superintendent, it's gone through the athletic director, it's gone through the principal of the school, and yet we're still sitting there with the same question as far as where does it stand right now? I have 3 girls that are involved in the cheerleading, so you'll probably appreciate this, and you have 2, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. So what's been going on has just been, there's an undisclosed account out there that is going through an audit right now that is actually, the funds are being frozen at this point. Yet we're going to split 2 organizations where there was already commingling of money based off of rings that were purchased by the original account as well, just as one for instance. And it kind of just showed up on one side. But if there was a separate account for that organization, why wasn't the money taken out of their account? Because if not, if you're taking it out of the joint account, there's 3 other squads that actually should have received the same benefits. If you're spending $1,800 here, why don't you be $1,800 here, $1,800 here, and $1,800 here? And in fact, that did not happen. And so it continues to go on. And I know it's been to the school board as well. And I know everybody has been in Lincoln on it, so I'm more confused as kind of directing it that way.
I'm not sure what you refer to as our enlightenment about it. I've not seen any spreadsheets. We've not been privy to any of the specific information that's being handled by the administration, and that's what I would say, that that is an administrative matter at this time. I can't really speak to it.
It sounds like maybe somebody can make a request to the superintendent to have a sit down with all of the parties.
It is already gone, I mean, it's already gone through that process. It's just, there's no, seems to be no one wants to kind of take ownership of it and provide any resolution for it. So at this point, it would just be kind of going up and above all of this at some point to kind of get the answer that you need.
I would have to reread the booster policy and see if there was anything helpful
Well,
in there.
the boosters turn in their financial records to the athletic director every year, but it's not something that is, they just turn in the records.
Right, right. So maybe,
We don't tell them how to, the school district doesn't tell them how to spend their money or
Right.
anything like that. So that's why I'm kind of confused. I don't have the answers.
right. I'm thinking maybe an impassioned request to assist in the resolution of separating the finances with the athletic director and the superintendent, perhaps, would be my yes.
Other questions related to the cheer program, not necessarily financial, because I'm understanding that you can't comment on that per se. We were members of the cheer booster organization, and were just informed basically today via email that the competitive squad had made their own booster organization with our past presidents. So the school board approved it. So my question is, how can a board member of a current organization split without going to their members, without giving them an notification? I mean, this has apparently been in the works all year long, and we were not notified. We're just hearing about it now. It may, like, from education this year, it may seem like it's not important, but it's important to our daughters, and I just don't understand how the school board approved a split without the original board being notified.
And we feel
I-
misled because our daughters are under the impression that there can be a sideline squad.
There's no coach.
Right.
No coach, yeah, no fundraising, no.
I do need to kind of jump in and let you know, like, well, this isn't a board meeting, one, and an individual on the board cannot take any action as an individual. The board functions as a unit, so I just want to make sure you understand it's
How
not.
is the process determined on?
Well, the recommendation came to us in the committee meeting from the athletic department and the superintendent that the request was made to. So it's been 3 weeks ago that at a public meeting that this came about, and at the school board meeting, and there wasn't any objection.
We weren't aware.
Yeah, it sounds like the board was not aware of this whole backstory
Right, so
and the
it
issues
sounds
since
like
then.
there has to be some investigation done.
Well, what should our girls do in the meantime?
I don't
We have no board, we have no coach, we have no fundraising, that they left us. So what should we do in the meantime?
Well, I thought the girls, again, this isn't a board meeting, but I
Right.
thought that the girls were part of, I thought that girls are on both squads.
Our daughters on sidelines.
There's no coach for the sideline squad.
The school district has approved a coach, a cheerleading coach, and an assistant. There are 2 coaches.
When did that happen? It never supposed to happen.
Well, no,
According to the
the coaches
athletic
were,
director,
the coaches were approved last summer.
I think you're thinking of competitions.
There's comp and there's sideline. Our daughters are on sideline. And the comp separated, and now they have their own boosters. And then the sideline, you don't have anything now.
I think given that whatever has transpired in the last 24 or 48 hours isn't something that they know about. But
What's their advice to us, though? What should we do? We're getting no answers from anyone.
My understanding is that the two coaches coach both teams. Well, let me put it this way. Of the two coaches, there's two teams. One is primarily responsible for one, and one is primarily responsible for the other. That's my understanding as of meeting the other night. So yeah, I think that you need to go back to the.
yeah, I would request meeting with the principal, the athletic director, and the superintendent. Okay.
And I will bring your concerns to the superintendent too.
Just real quick, I would like to say as a school board member, I don't know the ins and outs of this issue. I can't help you right now. But what I will promise to do is when these things are first brought to my attention, firstly, I'm going to find out who has the authority to make these decisions, whose jurisdiction does it fall under. I've heard, this is something the superintendent should deal with. It's my understanding we hire the superintendent, and the superintendent is supposed to act upon our direction. He's supposed to provide recommendations to us, but act upon our direction. So I think there should have been maybe more questions asked when it was first brought to the attention of the board instead of maybe just taking the recommendation of one individual.
Okay. Well, you brought up a good point, Mr. Nagel, that the function of the school board is not to manage all of the issues and resolve everything directly. The function of the school board is to direct administration with an overarching vision of how to get those things resolved. But you're correct that at some point, should that not be feasible and not be working out at that level, going to the school board is an option. But since it just happened, I don't think they know any of those details at this point. Okay, what are your thoughts on mandating high school seniors passing standardized tests in order to graduate? And again, so that you know, that is something that comes from the state, and if there is a requirement from the state, it is not within the ability of our school board to change that. But what are your thoughts on standardized testing to graduate from high school?
Well, actually, the state exempted everybody from doing it this year, and Bethel Park decided to continue to mandate it, which I believe I'm on record as voting no.
Yes, you are.
So, if the state doesn't require it as a mandate, I think that we owe it to our students and our community to look closely at the whole testing program and make a decision based on that. Whether or not, I mean, it might be to continue to test, and we were asked to continue the program so that the students would continue to take it seriously, so that our rankings and so forth would continue to, hopefully stay reasonably high. But I have a problem with all this testing and all the time that it is taken out of the school day in order to teach to the test. So I do have a problem with that.
My educational philosophy is to teach people how to think, how to learn, not what to think and what to learn. The idea of standardized tests, Common Core, all that, came from a very, very solid idea. It was people were leaving high school, leaving the public education system and going across lines, and the standards weren't the same, so they weren't on the same level as a lot of students they were going to school with. However, I think we went way too far with it. We got away from trying to teach students how to think. And I'm not saying we as a school board, I'm saying we as a society in whole got away from trying to teach students how to think, how to learn, how to use critical thinking skills, and started teaching towards tests because there are mandates that come from above, from state and federal, that tell us we have to reach these goals, we have to achieve these things in order to get funding. And it takes funding to operate a school system. So, but if we have been exempted, as Mrs. Dogo said,
Just for the year.
for the year, we should take that as an opportunity to maybe try to pull away from it, or try to incorporate the things that are required of us, but still do it in a way that we're teaching students how to think. Maybe not teach them to learn this for this test, but still direct that path in. How do you learn this? How do you grow from this? How do you expand upon it? And in the process, you learn how to pass those tests because you know how to think on your own.
Thank you. What are 3 things you plan to do to support students with special needs within our school district? Mr. Nagel?
Well, honestly, as I've told you guys, I don't have a whole lot of insight. I do know IEPs, 504 plans, gifted IEPs are an asset to people with special needs. It helps them develop, and if anybody doesn't know what an IEP is, I'm just learning. It's an individualized education plan, I believe. Gifted IEPs, 504 plans are basically, I believe they're federal mandates that help create paths for people with special needs to participate in educational programs and resources the same as people without. Again, I mean, the parents of people with special education needs know their children the best and know what they need the best. We need to critique these IEPs regularly, which is mandated. I think it's every 3 years it's mandated. I don't know what our district does, what our district's policy is, but we need to critique it, and we need to critique our implementation of them also. And we need to do that by bringing the paraprofessionals, special education teachers, and teachers in general into the process, along with parents and the students. Some of these students are able, I mean, they have special needs, but that doesn't mean that they can't help make these decisions also, or help have a voice in these decisions. I do know of one student who has GIEP, gifted IEP. Kid's brilliant. He's very capable of being a part of that decision-making process too. And as school board members, we need to encourage the superintendent and the administration to incorporate people in these decision-making processes.
Thank you. Mrs. Dovis?
As a school board director, we don't have a particular hand in the actual services. What we do is we make sure that the funding is there in order to provide the services, or to provide the staff, to make sure that there's enough staff. So that would be something, one of the things that I would be carefully looking at, is to make sure that we've got the staff to help the special needs students or the gifted students. In addition, we oversee the special services department, so asking questions of our special services director and so forth would be something that would be in my ability to do as a school board director. And also, lastly, we create policy, and so our policies, we have policies about special services and so forth that we review on a regular basis, and to make sure that I'm reading them and up on them and different things like that. But in terms of the hands-on, everyday kind of activity going on with special services, the school directors really aren't part of that. We oversee it, and we aid it, we help it, we facilitate it, but we're not that hands-on.
Thank you. Kind of tailing off that question to one I had emailed. Do you support a survey of parents whose children have 504 plans, IEPs, and/or GIEPs to determine what's working well in our district and what might need to be improved? And would you meet with parents or direct administration to meet with parents and follow up with identified systemic problems and concerns before they become a legal problem?
I think that a meeting is always preferable to a survey. I do think that we just went through a whole survey process with the strategic plan and also with I think the superintendent search, where we surveyed, parents and so forth. So we did get some feedback that way. But yes, I would be willing to meet with parents if it seemed as if there were concerns that are not being met by the Special Services Department. I think it has to go through a series of steps in order to come to the school board level. But if it is something that needs to be addressed, sure.
Thank you. Mr. Nagel?
Oh, I agree 100%. There are a series of steps that need to be met. It should go through the school first, the school administration first. But again, I think the overarching policy issues are under our purview, and we should be always engaging, open, and trying to bring as much information and as many perspectives into that decision-making process on the policies as possible.
Thank you. Since we're on the special education and special services issue, would you support the formation of a special education parents advisory council, which is not required in our state? It is required in some states. However, there are districts in the greater Pittsburgh area who voluntarily have a special education parents advisory council specifically to work with administration in a formal way with monthly meetings, addressing concerns, questions, and problems as they arise with the system so that the parents have support and everyone has a plan to work together.
I gave this question a lot of thought because, as you guys can see, my overarching theme is bring as many people into the decision-making process as possible. Honestly, I can't answer it right now. I can't say that I support it, just simply because when you're talking about special education needs, when you're talking about bringing a council of parents in to make decisions and things of that nature, as a formalized process, you're also risking opening up personal information of students. I'd have to see how it was to be formed to protect the privacy and the personal information of the students before I could say, yes, I would formalize it, because I want to engage everybody I can, but the students, as I keep saying, are always first and foremost. So I have to make sure that their personal information would be protected through a form.
Right, and to be clear, that committee does not get involved in any individual child's IEP. It's more of a community of special need parents who work on general issues and concerns and ask questions and share information. Just so that you know.
Yeah.
Not that they're reviewing anyone's IEP. That's not how that works.
I'd definitely be open to it, but I can't commit to it until I have more information to make that decision.
So you're in the need more info column.
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Davis.
We talked tonight a little bit about former committees, curriculum committee, budgetary committee, and this would be another type of that committee that is similar type of committee, which meets to give advice, to look over things and different things like that. So I think that rather than saying yes to this specific committee, I'm saying that what the district should be doing is to look at an overreaching organizational plan to involve parents with the school district, and whether that's forming multiple specific committees or one larger committee that has subsets under it, or whether it's involving the PTO in a different way with these subcommittees also. I think it's something that should be looked at, considered, and thought about, but I'm not on board right now with saying yes specifically to this specific committee,
Right.
whereas we don't have other committees in our organizational schemas at this time.
Thank you. We have a little bit of a more specific question from a high school student. There apparently it's been announced, or perhaps it's a rumor, I don't know, about next year not having the once a month extended 40-minute homeroom in which high school students can meet for club meetings to organize the extracurricular activities. And the students are concerned about whether or not that's true, especially as college applications require a lot of community service, and they want to see involvement in activities and extracurricular things in addition to the academic grades. And I don't know if you know anything about it, you might not, or you might not be able to say.
I know nothing about it, I cannot say.
Okay, so I think the student and or parent should probably contact the principal.
And or bring it up at their school board meeting, or bring it up to the superintendent or something like that. I've
Okay.
not heard anything about it.
I have
You
not
probably
either.
haven't either.
I usually do hear most things, and that one I have not heard.
But I'll keep my ears open now that it's been brought to our attention.
Let's see. I think we were talking about the surveys of the different parents. And something that I think about is whether or not soliciting feedback from the parents of students who are not in our district would be an important step in trying to determine what needs they have that this district isn't meeting. Especially considering there are occasions and there are times where some people have made that decision, and that's just philosophically or politically the way they're going to go, regardless of what's happening in our district. But a lot of parents make that decision to leave the district. And I'm curious whether or not you see the value in trying to determine what we might be able to do better to keep them here or bring them back.
Just a question. When you say leave the district, they're still residents of Bethel Park and taxpayers, correct?
Yes, they are still taxpayers. They are taxpayers. They may homeschool. They may public cyber at home. They might private school or public charter in a brick and mortar.
Sure. I think that currently we do encourage, for example, homeschoolers to enroll part-time in our school, to participate in activities, and we do reach out to students who are enrolled in private cyber schools or charter schools in order to see if we can encourage them to come back into the Bethel Park school system, because we now also have a cyber aspect to our educational program. Because when we do that, we save our taxpayers lots of money. Because to send a student or to have a student go to a cyber school or a charter school costs us a lot more money than it does to educate them within our school district. So we do already reach out to students, and we've, over the last years, 2 or 3 years, we have been able to get, I don't want to say many, but there are students that have come back, and we have saved an extraordinary amount of money. I think that the one area that we could maybe work a little bit more on this is in our transportation area. Right now, years before I got on the board, a decision was made not to transport students from their daycares to the elementary schools, except unless the daycare was in the vicinity of the neighborhood school. Last year, we had a particular parent who approached us about that, and it was clear to me that if it would be less expensive for us to transport that child from their daycare to the school, the elementary school, than it is now to pay for that child's cyber education or charter education, in addition to probably his siblings' charter education. So I definitely think that's a policy that we should continually look at and rethink, because to my mind, what we're doing in addition to losing money is that we are forcing parents to go to a daycare within the vicinity of their child's intended elementary school, rather than allowing them to go to the daycare that they have chosen because they've done the research and they think that that's a quality daycare. And so that only addresses working parents, obviously, but that's the only area I see that we should probably work a little harder to try to get students to stay in the district.
Well, I believe 100% that homeschoolers should be welcome in extracurricular activities. Not only is it the law, but it's my belief that children, when they're participating in group activities or activities that might not be available or feasible to teach at home, they become more well-rounded, they're more socialized within the community, feel more invested in their community. There are many reasons to send children to homes or to charter school, cyber school, homeschool, private or parochial schools. There are many decisions in that factor, and we should always be evaluating why those decisions are being made, and reach out to the parents, and if the students are old enough to make some of these decisions or give feedback, reach out to them and say, what can we do better to serve you? Because again, that's what we're here for, is to serve the children and provide the most robust, well-rounded education we can for them. And if we're failing them in some way, we should welcome the feedback.
Thank you. And I do want to say, because I know a lot of homeschoolers, cyber schoolers, brick and mortar public charter schoolers, and I was also a cyber school parent at one time. I do think that there's more opportunity to bring them back through looking at what their special education and gifted education needs are. It's my 2 cents, along with the transportation from daycare. In your opinion, what opportunities and challenges are in our district, and is there anything that you would like to change specifically, or that you'd like to work towards? Obviously, you're one member of a nine body organization, but is there something that is motivating you and that you would like to make as a goal to work on?
I think that our challenge is to juxtapose the increasing costs of everything, healthcare, PSERS, which is the Pennsylvania retirement system, with maintaining our high education standard. And I think that's we're always working through that. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. In addition to figuring out how to deal with the standardized testing atmosphere. So that, I mean, on the one hand, we encourage creativity and STEAM and interdisciplinary, and on the other hand, we focus on teaching to the test. So that, they're not diametrically opposed, but to me, they seem disjointed, and that's a challenge that we have to figure out too.
Thank you. Mr. Nagel?
Great answer. Nah. One of the things I've seen, we know we have wonderful teachers within this district. If any of you have gone to school board meetings, you always hear about all the state and national awards they're ranked for or winning, all the activities and extracurricular activities they're participating in. That provides us with limitless opportunity. One of our challenges, how to harness this talent and provide them with the tools and support necessary to help all of our children reach their maximum potential. That goes through curriculum choices, that goes through giving them the support and making them feel like they are partners in this process. That goes to engaging them with feedback. We just went through the Wonders debate, some of you may know. It was a program, it's a curriculum that we were looking at implementing kindergarten through 4th grade. We had, I believe it was a curriculum committee that provided a unanimous recommendation to implement it in kindergarten. The teachers in kindergarten were split, but the teachers who taught it, I believe, were very strongly in support of it, including a teacher who came in because she was opposed to it and wanted to be a dissenting voice, and she turned out to be in support of it. We did decide to buy the program after a lot of debate, some of the most open debate I've seen at a school board meeting, but it was with the caveat that we're going to keep the old program also, and somehow try to create a hybrid. I don't think that leaves teachers feeling like their information input's valued. They're the ones in the classroom. They're the ones teaching these kids. They're the ones that were tasked to do all this research, implement the program or curriculum in their classes, and then it was finally purchased, but it was with a caveat that it's purchased, but we don't really trust that your input is going to be is the best input, so we'll just purchase it now because it's cheaper, but we'll see how we implement it. That doesn't give the teachers confidence that they are valued. And that's just one example. I've talked to a lot of people and heard several examples of how a lot of the people, teachers, parents, don't feel valued in this decision-making process. It's a great opportunity to give them the tools, or great challenge to give them the tools, the curriculum, resources, and bring them into the process.
Thank you. Speaking of kindergarten, I did have a question up here about kindergarten.
One did fall.
Oh, thank you. Good thing. I didn't want to make a scene, but I couldn't figure out where that thing went. Okay, it reminded me I was missing one. Oh, all right. With increasing academic requirements and higher standards and fluency, influencing, sorry, I was thinking fluency, influencing the kindergarten agenda, what are your thoughts on what kindergarten should be and look like today? That's a tough one.
That is a tough one. Well, the whole discussion about the Wet Wonders program centered around how rigorous kindergarten should be. And there was some question about whether or not it would be too rigorous and turn students off, or whether it would challenge them and meet their needs, the students' needs at all levels. I do see that the preschool programs have become a little bit more academic. And at one time, they were mostly about play, because research has shown that play is the greatest indicator for your ability to read, if you can play first. But there has been a push towards this academic aspect that is nationwide. It's hard to, forestall it. So I believe that kindergarten should be engaging. It should address the multiple needs of students, because what we find that students come in with such a diverse abilities into kindergarten. There are students that come into kindergarten who do not have preschool experience. For me, that puts that child at a great disadvantage unless their parents have worked very rigorously with them. And there are a lot of programs out there. I know I take my grandchildren up to the library program, and it's so much fun, and they sing and they nursery rhymes. I mean, so that there are opportunities for parents to have their child involved in some kind of a socialization, in some kind of a learning situation before they get to kindergarten. But still, we still have a wide, we have a diversity in terms of the abilities of students coming into kindergarten. And the problem is if you still have that diversity when they leave kindergarten, the diverse abilities, then it's harder to be successful in first grade, I think. So I think that there is some rigor that is needed nowadays in kindergarten in order to help all students in order for us to help level the playing field for students. A few years ago, we actually discussed a kindergarten center at one point. I know it didn't go through, and I know it's going to cost more money, and I know parents want neighborhood schools and they want all their children to go. But the academic advantages of having that kindergarten center, to me, outweighed all of that, because it would allow us to identify students right away and have all the professionals right there in that building to work with those students to make sure that they would succeed. But nobody else thought it was a good idea. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody else thought it was a good idea, but I was very much taken with the idea, and the way it was presented made complete sense to me. But there was a lot of parental resistance, which I have to admire and appreciate, and listen to as a school board director. That doesn't answer your question. I did my best.
There you go. It's a deep, deep, deep question with no easy answers, really.
Oh,
You have someone in kindergarten, so you.
So what do you think, Mr. Nagel?
well, as Pam said, children come into kindergarten, they enter kindergarten at different levels with different backgrounds, different, some went to preschool, some didn't. Some parents read to them, some don't. Some just learn different than others. And it is very important to close that gap early. I talked to a teacher from outside the district who's a specialized reading teacher who said that if that gap's not closed by, I believe, third grade, it likely won't be closed. And this is one of the reasons I did speak up on behalf of Wonders in the kindergarten program. They used the word rigor, which wasn't a fair word, because it had 5 tiers 5 levels of learning to be able to address all of these different students and bring that gap together. Now that talks about a little bit of the rigor, and that talks about why I feel there should be some rigor. You're in school. You should be learning. You should be geared towards learning. Now kindergarten should be fun, and it should be something that kids look forward to. So they want to continue their education. They want to have a love for learning. And that goes to giving the teachers the tools to do that. I mean, we have wonderful teachers who know how to implement curriculum and make it fun, and allow kids to learn. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can have the rigor and teach kids to learn to love and enjoy the process of learning.
Thank you. I have the last question from the audience, unless anybody wants to write one down and waive it. What will you do to ensure character education is valued as much as academics in the district? Mr. Nagel?
Character education?
Character education. Values.
Well, there's a lot of great organizations out there that love to engage the school. Like I said, I'm on the executive committee of the American Legion. Sons of the American Legion, part of their whole program is youth. We're all involved in youth, but the Sons offer essays on Americanism, what it means to be an American. The Legion supports Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. There's other organizations, the Rotary Club, the Lions. There are several organizations within the community that they're looking for ways to help with the character. We need to lead by example, but we also need to engage these outside organizations who would love to participate in this. I've been part of discussions of different political committees coming in and just giving courses on not necessarily partisan politics, but the importance of engagement in politics, the importance of, like you guys, sitting in here trying to find out about your candidates and making well-informed decisions with high school students. Again, I speak a lot about the Legion because I'm personally familiar with it. They support Boys and Girls State, which sends kids to Harrisburg to actually form mock governments, elect mock governments, and deal with problems. These are all very good ways to, and we basically put the information out there and wait for people to come to us. As a school board, we can try to get that information out there more in order to get the students more involved. And these are things that do go on the college resumes. They are well regarded on the college resumes. And as a school district, we could do more to engage them and help bring them into the process.
Thank you. Mrs. Davis?
There was a time during my career where we weren't supposed to address character in our classroom, where we weren't supposed to talk about values. We were supposed to stay focused on the academics. I found that impossible to do as a teacher of literature because when you're reading, the values of the literature come forward. So I think that character education can be an integral part of the day, and that I don't see it teaching it as a separate entity, though. I think it should be taught as part of all the things that you teach and all the modeling that a teacher might do, and an integral part of the classes, which I need to be careful though, because I mentioned earlier separation of church and state. I don't believe in teaching religious values, although some religious values are ethical values too, and they build character and so forth. But I do think that we owe it to our nation to make sure that our students have strong character. There are so many complaints about the young people of today, the millennials and so forth, and they're all about themselves. But I know a lot of them, and they have good values, and they're all about helping, people, volunteering and food kitchens and different things like that. So I think that we've done in Bethel Park. I think we have done a good job with the character education, and we should continue to.
Thank you. We got a bunch of new questions. This one is about special education, and it says it's a two-part question. One, do you have a child with special needs? Which you may not want to answer, and that's fine if you don't want to answer that. But two, are you aware of how often new parents of special needs kids are taken advantage of and have poor IEPs done, thus leaving a source of distrust with the school district and the teachers? Special needs parent concern.
No and no.
No and no.
I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
So you haven't heard that?
My answers are the same. But if we aren't addressing it, we should be.
Which I guess leads us back to our maybe making some committees. Okay, what will you, and
Well, that question that doesn't sound like a general question. That sounds like a specific question about a specific IEP.
well,
I mean, I don't know, maybe I misinterpreted it.
I think it may have been written by a person with a specific question, but there is a large group of people who have similar concerns.
Well, in regard to special services and IEPs and different things like that, I know that we work very hard to follow the law and follow the mandates. I also know that there are legal challenges involved with all of that, and that there are lawsuits brought on a regular basis by parents, wanting a district to do certain things, and there are challenges involved with all of that. So that I think that there are enough procedures and things in place that a parent should be able to find some sort of remedy for the problem. And if not, then it should come higher.
Thank you.
We were speaking of a parent who is newly introduced to the IPs and things like that. I want to take it to my experience as service officer. A lot of times when you first realize you have a problem, you don't know where to look. And if you go to the wrong people or are given the wrong advice, it could send you down, it could be a major setback. It could send you down a path that you're taking your children in the wrong direction. And we were talking about basically a culture of misleading, or is that what we were discussing? Or I don't know who asked the question. But like there's not one individual instance. If there is a culture like that, if we're as school board members, something like that's brought to our attention multiple times, we definitely need to dig into it more, investigate it, and investigate our policies and procedures in implementing these IEPs or 504 plans.
Okay, thank you. We have a security question. What will you do to address the security issue now that Officer Modrak has left the district? A custodian has been named head of security. That seems ridiculous as he has no training. But I have not heard, I have heard a security officer leaving the district did come up at the last board meeting.
Yes,
However, I
we
did not
approved-
hear anything about
We
a
approved that
head
person's,
of security being appointed.
we did approve that person's retirement or leaving the district.
Yes.
And given that it's the end of the school year, we are going to address that over the summer months, but it's not going to be addressed. It wasn't addressed at the April meeting. I don't think it will be addressed at the May meeting. I do believe that there is currently there's a police officer assigned to our school And we do have security guards, so that's where we are right now until the end of the year.
And I think Dr. Pascarella said at the last meeting that there was an additional, a second security officer who was going to handle those duties. I thought that's what he said.
I don't think he said that.
No, maybe I misheard
If
him.
he did, I wasn't paying attention.
I might have misheard him. I don't know. I don't know, because
We have
it didn't
security-
explain it
we
on
have
the
security
agenda.
guards, and we do have an individual who is the policeman who's assigned to our school district. And I know we have been in contact with the police department to ensure that they will respond quickly if we would need them, given that we have this vacancy at this time.
Okay.
But I have not heard the custodian is
I hadn't heard that one either.
now in charge of.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Ken? You probably hadn't heard any of that either, so. Obviously, security is important, however, it sounds like it's,
You know, it's a large school district. There
in
are lots
hand.
of rumors that go like wildfire throughout the district.
this is true.
And some of them, most of them, I would say, are not true. Some of them are, I guess.
Some of them are. Let's see, would you support the hiring or creating a position of an inclusion specialist for the district, which should be in the special education world? Someone who focuses the IEP teams and the special education departments and the parents towards creating inclusion and finding ways to make more inclusive practices work in the classroom.
For me, the needs would have to be assessed, and it'd have to be, a case would have to be made
Mhm.
in order to hire somebody, because right now, we are not in the habit of hiring anybody right now. So.
Yes, well, that leads me to the next question I just got, but go ahead, Mr. Nagel.
Although I do think a security director, a security person, it will be a necessity.
Well, personally, I'd have to assess the, as I said, the whole special needs situation is new to me. I don't know, I don't have a child with special needs, and I don't know what policies or what is in place. As I've told you before, I'll make the most informed decisions based on all the information I can get, and I don't have enough information to determine if there is a need to hire somebody right now.
Thank you. And I think of the questions I had, both good answers. The questions I had sent you, I think we pretty much touched on everything except probably maybe a little bit about the budgeting balance between providing services that are required by law, providing the extra and optional niceties that contribute to a well-rounded education but are not required by law, and raising taxes. It's an extremely delicate balance, but what happens when during the year things that are required to be provided aren't happening, or you need to spend more money for those? Where does that money come from, and what happens if it's the district's legal services that's over budget?
If you ask most of the kids, it comes from the money tree. As elected officials, we have to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. We have to spend wisely and efficiently. What is legally required should be provided, is to give all students a safe, secure, and robust educational environment that will give them the best chances of succeeding in the future. Tax increases are always regrettable. I mean, I don't want to pay more taxes, and you know, if I vote on tax increases, I have to go home and talk to my wife about it too, because she doesn't want to pay more taxes. But it would be much more regrettable, unforgivable, if we sacrifice our children's health, safety, or education in the name of lower taxes. So we have to be efficient. We have to be diligent stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, but we always have to keep the children's health, safety, security, and education first and foremost in these decisions.
Thank you. Mrs. Davis?
I agree. It is a delicate balance. It's a difficult thing that the school board I take very seriously. We review the budget every year. We look at those areas that are areas that are going to be cut. We look at areas that we might put reserved for additional monies. For example, we have committed to increase technology in the district, and we have been supporting that in terms of monetarily, making sure that there's money for the Chromebooks and different things like that. But we also have a great district in terms of the education and the teaching staff and the support staff. And it's difficult to know when a cut is going to affect a student's education or not, and how it will look the following year. So my decisions and my voting is always based on whether I think it's going to be in the student's best interest. And sometimes that's not the inexpensive way of doing things. Sometimes we need to put money in those particular instances. The specific aspect of the question about what if your legal services are exceeded, and I think there have been many years when that has happened. Fortunately, we have an excellent financial officer who makes predictions based on the history of the district, of, where we need money and how much extra should be put in this particular pot and so forth. And he's led the district very well. We are one of the few districts in Allegheny County who could say we're in really good financial shape. Most of them are not. You hear about districts furloughing 40 teachers and different things. We are not in that place. We are in a good place regarding all of that because of his careful attention to detail and to finances and so forth. And legally, you never know exactly what cases might come up too, so it is kind of unpredictable. But it's a difficult decision. The last 2 years, well, we haven't voted particularly. We haven't voted till next month about the budget, but we haven't raised taxes, which is also kind of unheard of. I think that we have to be careful at a certain point that if we go to bare bones, what is the result of that educationally? And so I'm keeping a pretty close eye on where we are educationally, what we're doing, and trying to vote for the best interests of the community and the students.
Thank you. I have one more. I'm trying to think of how to. In fairness to the question asker, as well as Mrs. Dobis, this is regarding the addendum to the superintendent's contract, which I do not know anything about, and I do not know whether or not you are at liberty to discuss that. And you may not be, and that is not necessarily any personal reflection of yourself.
I think that the contract is public knowledge, but I'm not certain about that, so I'm not going to speak to it.
Right. The solicitor said it would be publicly available after the vote, which ordinarily I would have already requested, but I've been busy doing this, so I didn't get a chance. So I don't have it yet, and I do not know anything about the details of that. But I guess the question was about with cutting back hours of paraprofessionals and making them full-time, part-time instead of full-time, not filling positions, trimming nurses' hours, having the nurses filling each other's spots, driving all over the district every other day or 4 hours or whatever. Those are money-saving measures, and I guess the question was whether or not the addendum to the contract was a money-saving measure. But I don't think anybody can really answer that at the moment.
I think if the solicitor said that it will be public knowledge, I think I'll wait for it to become public knowledge because
I can understand that.
I've been warned several times about things that I've said, and I don't want to.
Well, I appreciate that when you can, you speak, so thank you, and I understand. So
But
I'll make
I
it,
can-
I'll make
can-
it public
I will-
knowledge and
I will
everybody will
speak
know.
in the superintendent's defense in regard to his fiscal responsibility. He has been a prime mover in terms of being able to keep your taxes at zero increase. And has saved, I would say, millions. That's, I'm talking millions of dollars for taxpayers. So, you know, that's all I'm gonna say.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Mr. Nagel?
I have no knowledge.
There you go. There you go. Okay. I agree. I do think that it's quite something for the district to be able to say that this is the second year. They haven't finalized the budget yet for this upcoming year, but right now they're looking at no millage increase, which is,
Because we have a good fund balance
yes,
that we can use if that unexpected expense comes along. And
that's good to know.
And a lot of districts don't have that fund balance because the state has raised the cost of the retirement for us it just keeps on going up and up and up. Now, I'm part of that retirement system, so, you know, I'm not gonna, as a
Fair point.
retired teacher, but the legislators, in effect, defunded it years ago, and now we're all paying the price because of the lack of foresight years ago in terms of the PESers.
Right. And attending budget meetings, I know it sounds dry, but you learn quite a lot about what's going on when you go to a budget meeting. And it's an impressive, I think it's like 79% of the budget is predetermined. There's nothing anyone can do. It's all contractual and it's all determined by the state. So even though the budget itself is very, very large, there's a very small percentage of that that's discretionary and can be moved around into different categories. So the district has done a great job of not being in a deficit and not having to fire a whole bunch of people and close schools. And there are a lot of schools in the greater Pittsburgh area who are going through that right now. Some of that comes at a cost, I guess, and that's the delicate balance.
Well, in terms of public record right now, in the past year, for example, we've only voted on one furlough. We have closed positions based on retirements, and that's public knowledge too. But we've only had one furlough that's been voted on, so there's that.
Yes, it's a difficult position. It is. All right, I wanted to we have a couple of minutes. We have lots of cookies and water. And did either of you have anything in particular you wanted to say that we didn't cover? I know, that was kind of exhaustive. I think we covered everything,
Just thank
except
you
the
all for
football team.
coming.
We didn't cover them yet, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Ovis, and thank you, Mr. Noble.